Choosing Love by ginnyrules27. Chapter 27. The weather seemed to almost taunt them as the group of 5 made their way to the Isle of the Lost. Instead of the typical gorgeous weather, the sky was overcast with light grey clouds and a slight chill. Mal was certain that if she didn't have a jacket, she'd have been dealing with another round of chills. That would have been the worst possible thing at this point, because there was no way she could justify to herself pushing back this food run. The applications had been completed and approved, so all that was left was to get them and pass them out among the kids of the Isle. My crew can handle that, she thought as they made their way over the bridge. I actually wonder what they've all been up to since Uma and Harry came over. I hope Henry hasn't been working them too hard. I remember he used to train non-stop. The only ones who trained more than him would probably be Harry or Uma. Maybe me or Jay. Or Harriet. The rest of the crew didn't seem like they had changed according to Uma or Harry. Bonnie was still the best at maintaining their weapons. Dustin was still a well-meaning prat who had way too many flings, if Mal was being honest. And Nick and Jake were inseparable. Same with CJ and Ryan. You know, I'm a little surprised Jay didn't throw out Jade's name back when we were planning to get the next group, considering she used to pal around with Lachlan and Brooke, and they're now in Freddie's little cult. Mal thought as Ben drove across the bridge. Then again, Jade's one of the older girls, so she'd probably want a spot to go to a younger VK. Still, we'll get her off the Isle one way or another. She's Jay's family, after all. Speaking of family, I wonder if I can stop by Dad's restaurant while we're here. The Oridon food is great, but there is nothing like Dad's garlic crispy chicken, after all.
What are you thinking about?
Jay asked with a small chuckle as he looked over at Mal. What do you think? Uncle Hades' food, probably, Uma said with a chuckle of her own, before Mal had a chance to answer.
I mean, I don't blame her. Uncle Hades has some awesome food, after all.
Mal shook her head in amusement. Lucky guess, you two. But yeah, I was just thinking I was hoping for a few minutes to stop by Dad's restaurant and grab a bite before we go to check on that hospital. Last time we were here, I didn't really get a chance.
Last time we were here was a clandestine meeting to give you a chance to talk to your dad in person, rather than through the mind link, Harry reminded her.
Exactly. Therefore, I didn't have time to grab a bite of his food, since no one knew Ben was with us.
We should have time this go around, Ben nodded, looking at the 4 of them through the rearview mirror. Akio and Amira are aware of where I'm going, so is Chip. If there's a problem in Oridon, they should be able to take care of it. Hopefully.
Your shadows should be fine. Besides, isn't it Emma who's your official heir? Wouldn't she be the one handling any problems that arise? Should they arise when we're on the Isle?
She is, but those 2 are like her unofficial counselors or something. Granted, they're also my unofficial advisors, so they're used to doing that.
Mal chuckled and shook her head. Don't those 2 ever get tired of being your shadows?
Considering they've been doing it since we were 4, I doubt it,
Ben told her with a chuckle of his own.
I don't ask them to do it, they just took it upon themselves.
Mal couldn't help but smile a little at that. There was just something about knowing those 2 would always look out for Ben that put her a little at ease. Plus, she and her crew would be there as well.
Alright, Ben, let's go over the rules one more time, Jay said as they parked the limo. Don't leave your sight, don't talk to anyone unless you 4 talk to them first. Don't leave the territory, don't do anything touchy-feely, and don't go by Ben, Ben said with a nod of his head,
pulling his beanie down slightly and pulling on the jacket Evie had made for him.
Smart man, Harry nodded, though the crew's not stupid. They would have seen you on the television at Ursula's if they went there to watch your coronation, especially if they see Mal. The new guy with us wearing blue and being close to Mal.
Oh, that's right, Mal nodded. Ben, no romantic gestures, okay? At least not until we get on the ship. If the wrong person sees, they might try to grab you to get to me.
Ben nodded slowly. You know I can't defend myself, right?
I know, but this is the Isle, Ben, Mal said softly. They don't exactly play fair, and you Oridon folks are all about fair play. I just don't want you getting hurt. Ben gave Mal a small smile as he cupped her cheek with his hand. Having turned around and reaching through the gap between the drivers and passengers areas. I promise, Mal. I'll be fine. I wouldn't have tagged along if I thought there'd be danger. Yes, you would have, Ben. Don't lie. Jay chuckled.
But I think it's time we leave the safety of the limo before someone we'd rather not see finds it.
Oh, gods, if Zevon found this limo, that would probably be the worst thing possible. The only thing worse would be if Freddy found it. Mal nodded as they piled out of the limo. Harry and Jay grabbed a tarp quickly, and they and Ben made quick work of pulling it over the car in order to hide it. Come on, Uma nodded and gestured to the pipe they were all standing by.
Let's take the shortcut to the ship. Unless you want to stop by your dad's restaurant, Mal.
Mal tilted her head as she considered the options. While she would love to see her dad right away, the food they brought was meant for the crew. Plus, the crew were the ones who needed to get the applications. Besides, they could have enough time to visit the restaurant. Crew first and then Dad's restaurant before stopping by the hospital to check its progress, Mal stated. Ben will be safer on the ship than at the restaurant anyway. And the last report we got indicated the hospital was still only halfway built, so all we'll really need to do is just peek at it before leaving. The restaurant is in neutral territory, but that doesn't mean Freddy or Zevon scans couldn't launch an attack before we got there or after we leave.
Right, Uma nodded, passing out swords that she'd swiped from the gym back at Oridon Prep. Let's go. The longer we stand around here, the more we look like sitting ducks. I know this is our territory, but that won't stop a really determined idiot.
And by idiot you mean Freddy?
Of course I mean Freddy, Uma said as she climbed through the pipe. Who else do you think I meant?
Zevon?
Touché.
Mal smirked as she followed Uma through the pipe and took a deep breath of the salt water of the cove.
Isn't your dad gonna freak out if he finds out you were here?
Jay asked as the boys climbed through the pipe. Probably, Mal nodded. Ever since that incident when she was 9, you know, the one where Freddy almost killed her, Hades had banned Mal from Pirates Cove unless Uma or Harry was with her. And even then he wasn't exactly happy about it. But you see, Jay, what my dad doesn't know won't hurt him. A. And B. There's a reason why we scheduled this trip on a Wednesday.
It was the day that Mitchell here didn't have any meetings, so we wouldn't be incredibly rushed going to and fro?
Well, that. But it was also the day when my dad doesn't have a pickup to make at Hook's Fish Shop, Mal explained, smiling a little at hearing Jay use Ben's fake name. Now hush, I want to see how long it takes whoever's on lookout to realise we're here. Jay smirked and looked towards the Lost Revenge. It was hard to tell from where they were, but there clearly was someone in the crow's nest. No time like the present to climb up on the gangplank, Uma said, and started making her way towards the ship. Captains, first mate, and Jay climbing up the gangplank cabin. Thank you, Derek, Harriet called as she walked over to greet the 5 of them. What are you four doing here?
Well now, Harriet, is that any way to greet your brother?
Harry chuckled. Where's Henry? Mal asked as she made her way up the gangplank as well. He didn't get injured in a face-off again, did he? Harriet shook her head as she brought her brother in for a hug. He is on a scouting run. He's been doing those more and more lately. It's been a bit worrying, if I'm honest.
At least he's getting off the ship, Harry said as he broke the hug. Back when Uma and I left, all he was doing was training constantly. I mean, I love a good spar as much as the next pirate, but I honestly think he trained 18 hours a day.
His scouting runs have gone as long as 6 hours, Harriet told him. Derek and Ryan tried to follow him once, but got lost.
Henry's one of the best swords on the crew, Uma said. As long as he's armed, he can handle himself.
He hasn't come back from these scouting runs injured, has he? Mal asked.
If he has, we haven't seen any, and he's always up and training the next day, Harriet told him. But you guys probably didn't come over to the Isle to hear about Henry. A good captain is always concerned about their crew, Uma stated. You know that better than anyone, Harriet, being a captain yourself.
Harriet smiled as Harry wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Surprised Sammy's not by your side, Mal noted. Normally she's glued to your shoulder the way Harry's glued to Uma's.
She's watching her brothers,
Harriet explained. Her dad had to work today at your dad's restaurant, and the boys are too young to be left alone all day. Mal nodded. Squeaky and Squirmy Smee had been born when Sammy was around 11, and the poor kids joined the ranks of those Isle kids who had their mothers taken from them through childbirth. At least Sammy was close enough to being a teen when she was forced into the role of motherhood, unlike Harriet, who had been forced to become Harry and CJ's mother at the tender age of 5.
We brought food,
Harry stated, holding up the bags that they had swiped from the kitchens. It truly was amazing how easy it was to swipe the food from the kitchens at the school.
Ah, news.
We like both of those things, Harriet said with a smile. And Mal knew she was thankful for the change in subject. You want me to summon the crew? Oh, no, let me, Mal said with a grin. Cupping her hands to her mouth, she hollered, Okay, you rats, crew meeting! If you're not here, you don't get food! It was like she had cast a spell, as Ben blinked in surprise at how quickly the other pirates had scurried up to them. It was mainly boys, but there were a few girls. Ben noted that they mainly congregated around Harriet, though a couple seemed to be with the other girls and Uma and Mal. Hey, Captain! Hey, Ryan! Mal chuckled at the younger brown-haired boy, who was busy rolling up the sleeves of his dark red shirt. You still got your flare gun? Think you could summon Henry from wherever he's hiding? Ryan grinned. It's locked and loaded, Captain. Permission to climb to the crow's nest? Permission granted. Mal and Uma nodded. Ryan grinned once more and grabbed, to Ben's shock, a gun, before climbing up the netting that seemed to be the way up to the mast where the crow's nest was. Carlos created those flare guns, Mal explained. We needed a way to secure our safety if we were patrolling at night, and Shere Khan met one of us in a dark alley. Hattie and I had our safety pretty much guaranteed since we can summon fireballs, but the rest of the crew weren't so lucky, so we couldn't be with them the whole time.
You said Carlos created those?
Give that boy a piece of tech and he's as happy as a dog with a bone. Harry nodded, having heard the muttered conversation. Ben nodded and watched as the boy, Ryan, he told himself, fired a bright red flare up into the sky. Unless Harry has passed out, he should see that, Uma nodded. If Henry's passed out, we've got bigger problems, Ma reminded her. The man trains non-stop after all. If someone got the jump on him, that's worrying. How long do you think it'll take Henry to get back here? Ryan asked as he rejoined them, having slid down the netting with a grin on his face. Depending on where he is, I'd say 5 minutes. The Isle's not the biggest place in the world after all.
You know, I just thought of something, Joe said. You don't think Henry's with a girl, do you? A few of the boys burst out laughing as they heard that. Henry! You really think he would break his no-fling policy? One of the boys asked. Jake's right. I think you've been a Borodon too long, Jay. Henry's still committed to being forever on his lonesome. Another boy nodded. Unlike you, Dustin, with your have all the flings I possibly can policy, Mal said with a small smile. Uma and Harry told us you haven't changed one bit. What do you want him to? A red-haired boy, whom Ben had to assume was Henry, asked, as he walked up the gangplank. Either his shirt's always that wrinkled, or Mal's just electing not to say anything, Ben thought as he took in Henry's dishevelled appearance. It wasn't anything noticeable to anyone who wasn't raised among Leah and Audrey, plus the year of dating Audrey. Ben quickly learned to hide any perceived flaws in his wardrobe when it came to her. There was no way he could have gotten away with wearing a wrinkled shirt in public, or have his hair ruffled like he'd just woken up and rolled out of bed. Not that that was a bad thing, just interesting. Look what the croc dragged in. Harriet chuckled. Where have you been, Henry? Scouting the territory, Henry said as he gave Mal and Uma a one-armed hug as a greeting. A hug that both girls readily returned, almost like a younger sister returning a hug from their older brother, despite the difference in hierarchy between the three of them. Need to make sure no angels or casters sneak their way through our defences after all. Uh-huh. And did you get in a fight or something? Yeah, mate, you look like a wreck. A dark-haired boy nodded, standing next to Ryan. Thanks, Derek. You really know how to make a guy feel good about himself. Henry chuckled, as he gave Harry and Jay a one-armed hug of their own. So I take it one of you lot called a crew meeting for me to be summoned like that? You'd be right, Henry. Mal chuckled and shook her head in amusement. We brought food and news from across the aisle. Ooh, 2 of our favourite things, a blonde girl said with a smirk as she pushed up the sleeves of her bright red coat. Ben noticed Harry gave a slight eye roll as the girl spoke, and he couldn't help but wonder why. It wasn't like they were the same age, so there was no way they could be rivals. You seem a bit too excited about that, CJ. It's food from Borodon, Harriet. Like directly from Borodon, so it won't be like what we find on the barges. Granted, it's been getting better, but the news is the thing I'm more interested in, CJ explained.
Yeah, last time we had news from across the bridge, we found out that our food was purposefully being turned rotten. Ryan nodded as he crossed his arms over his chest. Why wouldn't you be excited to see how else Borodon's ruined our lives? You're hungry, aren't you? How could you tell? I'm your best mate, Rye. You get testy when you're hungry, CJ stated, and Ryan rolled his eyes. Mal chuckled slightly. Well then, I think food first and then the news. Gods forbid Ryan not get a snack.
Hey, he looks to be a growing teenage boy. They've got to eat.
Ben couldn't help but chime in. Ryan smiled at him. I don't know who the new guy is, but I like him. Mal shook her head in amusement. She didn't know if Ryan was playing dumb for Mal's sake, or if he truly didn't recognize Ben. Mitchell, meet Ryan. Ryan, meet Mitchell. He's
a VK whose parent escaped the roundup 20 years ago,
Ben said quickly. He figured it would be a good idea to stick to the cover story they came up with for the first time round, rather than try and pretend there wasn't a risk of Ben getting hurt if word got around that the king was on the Isle.
Yeah, turns out I've got a cousin I never knew about.
Oma nodded, playing along. Aunt Morgana had some fun with a random human before Melody turned her into a fishsicle.
That explains the town.
Henry chuckled.
Huh? Your skin. It's got a bit of a tan to it compared to the rest of us,
Henry explained as Ben tilted his head in confusion.
But no matter. What's your news, Mal?
Mal chuckled as she and Uma began to pass around the food to the others in the crew. Oradon's going to select 5 more VKs to come across the bridge. We've got applications for the kids to fill out, and we'll come back around to pick them up in the next time we stop by.
We were hoping you lot might be able to spread the applications around the Isle.
Harry nodded. You think that's a good idea? Ryan asked. What if Freddy or another angel gets an application? That's just a risk we're going to have to take, Mal sighed, and Ryan nodded, making a mental note to grab one of those applications for his sister. He'd have to be sneaky about it, seeing as none of the crew knew about her, and CJ would probably yell at him if she thought he was abandoning ship to go to Oradon.
Harriet, I've already got an application for you,
Harry said, pulling Ryan out of his thoughts as the lone male Hook handed his older sister an application. Harry! Harriet shook her head. CJ should have this more than me. She actually fits the qualification of being a villain kid, after all.
Doesn't matter. I'll say you're a very tall 17-year-old if anyone has an issue, Harry said firmly. You've done so much for us, Harriet, when you shouldn't have had to. You deserve to see the sun too.
Harriet gave her little brother a small smile at that. Harry, I'm not going to take a spot from a kid who needs it more. You even said that there are only 5 spots to go this time around. I'll be fine. I'm not filling one out, CJ said firmly, crossing her arms over her chest. Why would I want to go rub elbows with prissy pink princesses and pampered princes? I'm a pirate, after all. Because you deserve a better life than what the Isle has to offer, Harriet told her, giving her sister a raised eyebrow. You're filling out an application, CJ. CJ scoffed. The captain won't exactly be happy about this. What he doesn't know won't hurt him, Harriet said, shaking her head, as she took a bit of the offered food. Uma, I'll make sure Celie gets an application, though.
We can all pass them around on our scouting runs, Derek promised.
That's the whole reason why we came here, Mal said, smiling a little as her crew took the piles of applications. There was no one better equipped to get the word out. Granted, her crew of 19 was the biggest VK crew on the Isle. They could pair up safely and not have to worry about another gang launching a sneak attack. So, Mousy, looking forward to this dance we keep hearing about on the TV? CJ asked. Mal raised an eyebrow. What did you call me? Trying out something new. I take it that's a no on the nickname? Very much so. I only go by 2 nicknames, and neither of those is Mousy. Duly noted. My question still stands, though, Captain. Mal sighed and shook her head. This is going to sound really weird, but I kinda am. I mean, it's a party in Oradon, so it probably won't be as exciting as the coronation, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
I dunno. Maleficent might like another lizard to keep her company.
Derek chuckled.
How are Deville, Haddie and Blueberry? Oh, and Gil. Where is he?
On a date.
Gil?
With the granddaughter of Zeus, Mal added. She normally wouldn't have cared about that part, but she knew it was the one thing that would get under his brother's and father's skin.
The fact that Gil had been able to get a date with an Olympian when they had not.
He's actually taking her to Cotillion.
Trust me, it's the strangest thing I've ever had to see. Harry nodded, but Fish for Brains seems really happy, and Macaria knows how to defend herself if need be. Oh, not that Gil would do anything. He knows that Zeus would smite him, and then Hercules would pound his ashes into almost microscopic particles, which Mally would then set on fire before Lord Hades would judge his soul.
You were ready with that litany of examples. Do you fantasize about Gil being smited? Harriet asked.
Of course not. Wait, I can do that?
Mal shook her head. Harry, Gil's not going to get smote. Understood? He's harmless, and he's Carlos's friend. Besides, I think you're just jealous that Gil's got a date and you're going stag.
Harry rolled his eyes. I'm going with Jay and Uma as a group, considering Deville's got a date with Fairy Godmother's daughter. I'm sorry, Deville's got a date. You heard right.
And I have to still wait until I'm 15 before I can have a fling? Deville's my age, Ryan exclaimed. He's 15, Ryan, Mal told him. Rules are rules, unless you've had a birthday recently that the crew doesn't know about.
We all had to go through it, Harry said.
I'm pretty sure you four set up the crew. No pointless rules for you, CJ muttered. Mal shook her head. Well, regardless, we're not going to change the rules anytime soon. Now, I hate to dine and dash, but I would like some of my dad's cooking, to potentially point and laugh at Maleficent as a lizard.
It was great seeing you, Captains, Henry told him. You too, Harry, Jay. And it was nice to meet you too, Mitchell.
Yeah, new guy, don't be a stranger. Ryan nodded. Ben nodded, a little too shocked at how readily they accepted him to say anything. He was worried he might blow his cover if he opened his mouth. The five of them made their way down the gangplank and toward Lord Hades' restaurant. Ben had to admit, as he took a bite of the Lord of the Underworld's cooking, it was certainly hard to beat Greek food made by a Greek god. He almost didn't want to leave to check the hospital's progress or go back to Auradon, but duty called. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Yeah, I just like that chapter, you know. You get to see it, you know. They always talk about how great the crew is, but this is actual proof, you know. They're all just joking and laughing around. And of course there is friction with the Hook siblings. Again, that will come back eventually. It's just gonna be a bit. And I love everyone's reaction to both Gil and Carlos having dates, because those are the boys they didn't expect, but dang if they don't. And you know how I feel about Gil and Macaria and Jane and Carlos. They're just so sweet. And yeah, I just like it, you know. And I like how observant Ben is. He's very silent in this chapter, but it's very fun to see. You guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.